everybody, and welcome back to the Dayton Troy. This is episode number 7, and this is going to be the final build episode here on this mini-series. But more on that in just a moment. Let's just get right into what we're doing here. In today's episode, we are working our way out of Troy and making our way westward. Again, going with my normal nomenclature here, we're working our way westward. I don't know if we're actually going west or not, but we're going west on the model railroad. To Piqua, and Piqua is another sort of downtown area with a lot of street trackage, and between Troy and Piqua is another depot and some just sort of countryside scenery, kind of looking at the track plan right here, right now. Nothing honestly super interesting. I think the most interesting part in the first segment of this video is the depot, and I like this depot that I picked out here. I don't remember what the name of it is, but it's a really nice asset. I think I got it off of the download station just before I started recording. And again, kind of mixing things up and trying to use different models each time. I definitely like this one in the way that it looks. And I do go ahead and do some more detail work on that, which we'll get into soon. I haven't seen this time lapse yet, so I honestly cannot remember exactly what I did and when it happened. So I just will, I guess, do the commentary just as I see it. So I think the first thing that I started working on was laying out the Catenary once again. And by this point in the series, I'm just really sick of doing the Catenary. And I had been speaking with a few of you guys who had told me in the downtown city areas and stuff like that, the Catenary would be pretty much strung between the buildings and not on these whatever you call them, the big trusses and stuff like that. Obviously in the countryside, they would use the trusses to mount the Catenary over top, but in the city, they would not be doing something like that. And unfortunately, due to the constraints of this game and the type of assets that are available, I didn't have the option of doing that. I think that there are some assets out there that allow you to kind of put the Catenary between buildings and attach it to points like that. But it was going to be way too much work for this build. And as I had said in the very beginning, the very first episode, I think it was, man, the Catenary really just, it's a lot to deal with. I don't think it's something I'll revisit again for a long time, unless I ever do like a New Haven line or something like that, which would be really cool. But I don't really have any plans for that, so I don't think this will probably be the last time I mess with Catenary. And this, along those lines, with that thought, this will probably be the last model railroad I do for a while. And this is going to get into why this is going to be the final build episode. Episode 8 was supposed to be the final details and then the layout room and that kind of thing. But once I started placing down the dig holes, everything just went haywire on this route. Anything that could have gone wrong did go wrong, and I don't think it's an SP3 bug or anything like that, because I had a similar issue with needles. When you put down the dig holes, for some reason it's changing the terrain. So really what it should be doing is just making the ground see-through, making the grid see-through, right? But what's happening is a lot of the assets are kind of getting clipped under the grid and getting buried underground, and it seems to be dependent on which dig hole you're using. So some of the smaller ones don't have any problems, the bigger ones seem to have the issues, and I'm talking about like assets being affected that are several, I guess, like grid squares away from where the dig hole actually is. So this caused a lot of headache in what was supposed to be episode 8. I actually did record a lot of the time lapse and a lot of the build stuff, but it was just such a mess. And it was so frustrating for me to actually do the build. I was like, there's no way that anybody is going to find this interesting or useful or anything like that. So I'm just cutting it out. Episode 8 is just going to be cinematics and then the release. So it's like 2 or 3 minutes. I've already got it finished. It's already done. It's like 2 or 3 minutes of cinematics, and then I'll have like the link for the download and stuff in there. But anyway, back to the problems with these dig holes and the model railroads situation and stuff like that. It's so difficult to actually pull this off in the game, like an actual model railroad. Like when you're putting down the fascia and you want to have like rounded edges, you have to put down these like texture splines, and then sometimes they want to conform to the terrain, so they're like buried underground, and it ends up being a major headache. So I mean, I guess if you were gonna do all square corners, you wouldn't have to use these texture spline things. You'll see them in the next episode. And I know I'm talking about stuff that's not even on the camera here, so I do apologize. I'm just trying to wrap up everything that would have been all the content that I would have talked about in episode 8. I'm gonna try to address here. But it's just too much. It's too much to do with these dig holes and then laying out the fascia and stuff like that. Which really stinks because I really enjoy doing these model railroad builds because they're small. I can finish them quickly. I can do a lot of detail stuff, and it allows me to do different prototypes to model different prototypes than I normally would. And there's just such a variety of different track plans out there. So I say this now, and I'll probably end up doing a model railroad again this fall, but I don't really think I'm going to, or at least for a very long time, until the dig hole situation is fixed, or somebody makes some better dig hole assets that don't have this sort of terrain conforming, whatever it is, issue. And I might actually do a standalone video just on that bug, just to kind of show it off, because I did report it to N3V as a bug. But I'm not sure if anybody's gonna actually understand what the problem is unless you see it. So I did post about it on my Twitter, so there is a GIF in there if you want to take a look at it. Go check out my Twitter. From, I think the date that I posted it was like July 20th maybe, or 19th, somewhere around there. So you can check that out and see it for yourself. Okay, so the next thing I want to address is what's next. So we talked about probably not doing model railroads again for a little while, and the P&B is basically done. So what is next? So the plan going forward at this point is to do, so the following video here, after this one, this is episode 7, you're going to have episode 8, which is going to be cinematics. The next video on my channel after that is going to be the P&B cinematics and release, which is episode 30. I haven't even started filming that or anything yet. We're still doing some tweaks to the route to get it ready to get it out to the public. So that's still in the works. There might be a little bit of a gap between episode 8 here and episode 30 of the P&B. I have no idea at this point, like how long it'll be, but hopefully very soon. Following that, come August, I am taking some time off. I am taking a vacation at the beginning of August. So there will be a gap in video content, and I'm going to take a little bit of time off, probably from posting videos, maybe for just a few weeks. I've got a little bit of work to do on my computer, and I'm going to totally rebuild my office space and that kind of stuff. So that's going to involve me taking my computer out and doing all that kind of stuff. I bought a new desk, and I got to assemble it and paint the room and do all those things. So there's going to be a little bit of gap in content for a little bit. But when I come back, I have a new series, which is going to be the DBEV, the Dry Brook in Esopus Valley, and that is the route that I began in some live streams. So we'll be doing a series on that. I've been working on the graphics for it and the visuals and stuff like that, and I'm really, really excited for it. So I can't wait to get into that. So that'll be the next thing that shows up on my channel. And a lot of you guys have been asking about the main central. I haven't actually had the time to take a look at if the issues were resolved in SP3. I'm hoping they are, because I would like to get back into that. So we'll see what happens there. Okay, so enough announcements. Let's talk about what's going on the screen here. At this point in this build here, we're working on Piqua, and I wanted to do this sort of kind of like a little park on the corner. You guys had recommended this newsstand asset here, actually to fill up that kind of weird corner that I talked about in episode 5, I think. It was in Tippecanoe City. There was kind of like a weird intersection corner piece. So you guys, some of you had mentioned that I should put it there, but I found that this asset actually looks really good right here. So I just went ahead and added some details, a couple people sitting on some benches and reading papers. I added a mailbox in there and some other stuff. You'll see a little bit more of it, I think, in the cinematics at the end. So again, we're just working on another big downtown scene, just like has been the theme for this whole thing. And I'm trying to keep things interesting by mixing up some of these buildings and clipping them together, just to make them look a little bit different than, obviously I've been using the same buildings over and over again throughout this whole series, throughout every town and stuff like that. So a little bit of variety and a little bit of diversity doesn't hurt to try to add in there. So again, just trying to clip in some of these buildings, and these blocks are so small. The space is so tiny, so it was actually kind of hard to get a decent amount of buildings in here to look good. And then also the fact that I decided to do these rounded sidewalks kind of caused some issues too, but I did resolve that. I found this nice, neat little asset here. This is like a fruit stand, I think, and it just fits perfect. I put a couple of them on the side of these buildings here to make it look like an outdoor fruit market. And I do go ahead and detail this area, which is probably one of my favorite scenes that I've done so far on this build. Just with some like fruits and vegetables. I add some people, which you'll see in a moment. And it just really brings to life this area, and it makes it feel like an actual happening sort of part of the neighborhood. So I really like the feeling there that I got out of that. I'm glad that I found these this fruit stand asset. I wish there was some more, like some other stuff, some other like variety of the fruit stands, like I don't know, different colored fruits and vegetables or different shapes of like the stand and stuff like that. But you know, it is what it is. Maybe I haven't looked at the config file, but maybe I can like reskin this or something like that. It would be kind of cool, so we can get some more variety of that. But yeah, here we're adding in some of the farmers and stuff like that, which is really nice little detail. So yeah, with this area, like I said, the goal was to detail everything as much as possible and to just bring as much life to these neighborhoods as I can, you know, given the Trainz, you know, asset collection. Now here is, I was trying to figure out what to do with this dead space in between these buildings here, and I thought it'd be kind of cool to just put some trees and some alleyways, you know, back there. And I lived in an apartment in New York City that looked into one of these sort of like weird negative spaces, and that's basically what was back there, was just overgrown grasses and dirt and some trees, and that was about it. Not really much happening. Of course, in New York there's a lot of garbage, but I'm not including that in here. But I thought it was kind of a cool detail to add in there. And it kind of brings a little bit of color to this otherwise really gray sort of neighborhood, these gray scenes. So it's pretty nice. I think I tried to work it into a few of the other places as well. Some of the other towns that we had already done. I did that in what would have been episode 8. So there's going to be a little bit of a jump between what's finished here and what you see in the final episode, because some stuff did happen, I guess, quote unquote, off camera. But you know, whatever. It's not the end of the world. You guys will be able to get your hands on this map and explore it yourself at some time in the future. So that'll be cool. So now at this spot, this is kind of just like the edge of the town, and I wasn't entirely sure what to do here because it's sort of a weird transition zone. So I added a couple of small houses here, kind of just hint at the idea that this town is building up and taking over, like, you know, these neighborhoods or these rural houses and stuff like that. It's getting bigger, and you know, before you know it, these houses will be bulldozed and there'll be townhouses in their place, or commercial space or something like that. So now with the roads, using these nice road markings again, I just can't say enough about, you know, how great those assets are. Again, I don't necessarily think that the road markings are too prototypical for the 1920s, 1930s, but I needed a way to denote exactly where the roads were, because, you know, with the way this game works, when you're putting textures down, they kind of just spread out into like polygons, and you know, if there's not something actually denoting that it is a road, like road markings or a cars or something like that, it could just as easily look like anything else, a pile of gravel on the ground or something like that. So I needed to add something, I felt. Here I'm working in some more of these gas lights, which are really great as well. Again, they don't work at nighttime or anything like that, but they look really good. And I just eyeballed them, threw them down. I did rotate them properly. I did that off camera. I rotated them all to be parallel with the road, so they're all facing in the proper direction, I think. Or at least they're all facing in the same direction. So that's good. And then over here at the movie theater, I thought it'd be cool to just add some people going in. Maybe they're buying tickets, maybe there's a show happening, something like that. So I thought that would be sort of fun. And I think this is kind of like must be getting close to the end of the episode, or the end of the build, because now I'm getting into like the finer details. And you know, this is the way that I kind of like to work, and I always talk about this. Get the big stuff done, in the broad area done, and then kind of work your way into smaller little details and stuff. Sort of like, you know, the Russian nesting dolls, you know, where there's one doll inside of another. You start really big, and then you kind of work your way down to these like smaller little details that you can add in here. And I think that that's a really great way to cover a lot of ground and get a lot of stuff done, and to make sure that everything has like a decent amount of details. And I think that that's really important, especially for what this is. This is supposed to be a model railroad. It should be really well detailed, you know, in my opinion, at least, I would think. So in this area, I'm just checking the clearance. If I can put some cars on the side of the road there, and the answer is no. They would be clipped by the trolleys. So no cars there. And again, just trying to populate the area, make it feel as lively as possible, you know, with what I could find. And, you know, it's one of those things where I found a good number of assets, and I kind of worked with those and added, you know, I guess some more assets as I built. But for the most part, I stuck with the same kind of asset palette, which I guess if I wasn't doing this as a video, I could have taken more time and maybe found more variety. But because this is a video series, I'm kind of limited in, you know, the amount of time that I like to take to do these sorts of things. So I usually try to build up my asset library beforehand, before I start the video series, and then dive in with what I've got and just use that and kind of sprinkle new things in here and there. And this is going to bring us right up into the cinematics. And that is going to do it for episode number 7. I want to thank you guys for watching this episode, and I want to thank you for watching the series. I hope you guys enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed building it. And if you did enjoy everything, make sure you hit the like button and hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so you can be notified when I post a new video or I do live stream. So with that said, thank you guys, and I'll see you soon.